Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories, so we hope to see you in the community. I just want to thank Sami. This is a very different approach to the podcast. Today, I'm actually interviewing Sami. Sami Steigmann is a Holocaust survivor, among many things, who is now one of the most motivational speakers that I know. So, Sami, I want to thank you for being on the show. And we'll talk a little bit about how you became who you are today.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be on your podcast. Interestingly enough, I do not think in those terms. Somebody else, relates to me as such, and then if it fits, then I just adapt it. So what happened is I spoke in Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, to high school seniors. And interestingly enough, after my presentation, that was many years ago, the teacher came to me and she said, the students told me that you were much better than the motivational speaker that the school has hired. And I asked, okay, how much did the school, pay them? Because I did it for free. I did not charge any money. So they said $7,000. So I said, if the senior students think that I'm better than the professional motivational speaker that was invited, I called myself motivational speaker. So it's other people's, is the wrong word to use, define me. They don't define me, but they make me adapt some of the things that they feel so strongly about my presentations.
I love it. And I think that's an important thing. So I'm going to back up half a step and I'm going to ask you, in your words, why do you feel it's important for people to talk about the Holocaust? What's in that conversation that's so valuable?
I believe, unfortunately, I am the only one that talks about how did the Holocaust happen. And I'm going through about 6 stages, showing that when people did not react in time and appropriately, it has kept escalating to a point of no return. I do not talk about the pain. Every human being, goes through, how should I say, difficulties, obstacles in life. Everything is very painful to that particular person. So everybody knows it in the Holocaust, so I don't talk about the pain. But what I want to do for the young people to understand, to learn from the past, and to see the signs of today, that if we don't act on time, appropriately, unified, things can escalate and can lead to other tragedies. And I'm hoping that by recognizing signs of today, they will become upstanders and hopefully prevent future tragedies.
Love it. And I'm just going to point out, let's talk about upstander because so far the people I've shared your first book with, that's the phrase that really resonated was, it's not enough to say I was just a bystander. Let's talk about what does bystander versus upstander mean in your world?
Okay. I'll give a very simple example. Okay, so for instance, let's assume that you are witnessing that somebody is hurting somebody else. So if you say, well, it does not affect me, you're a bystander. Okay, that person will continue to do what he does. There is no repercussion. But if you will decide to do without harming yourself, tell somebody, go to the police, or take a picture, whatever it is, by not being indifferent, you are an upstander. In my opinion, I don't think I'm the only one. I think somebody else said, I think it was, I don't remember who, but maybe Elie Wiesel, I'm not sure. But I heard this is somebody else's quote, but I use it because I love it. He says the biggest crime that somebody can commit is indifference. And all the tragedies, Holocaust, genocide happened because the world stood by and did nothing. Yes, there were individuals that did it, and they saved people, and they risked their lives to do that. But relatively speaking, small number. It was not okay worldwide, and that's why all the tragedies are able to happen. And, genocide is happening even today. You take a look, for instance, in China with the Uyghur people. You take, for instance, the war in Ethiopia with Tigray. So there are many tragedies in the world. You have Ukraine. You have many, many places that the world is not reacting appropriately with a proper, how shall I say, uh, I cannot find a very good word for it. Uh, but I'm
I
trying to
think,
say is they have to react in an effective way. It's
yes.
not just by using words, slogans, or messages. There has to be something tangible, practical that the aggressor, the oppressor, will find it that it's not to his or her benefit to keep
I,
doing it.
I think that's a great message. And what I love about your message in particular is it's equally applicable on the playground at a school as it is on the global stage. We should be upstanders, not bystanders, and definitely not the aggressors. Um,
Yes.
now,
If
one
I
thing
may say, if I
yes,
may say, okay, what I do say very often, Holocaust, genocide, all the genocides started with words, and we have to be very precise with using the proper words, and with bullying. You can bully a person, you can bully a group of people. So it all starts the same way. And words are extremely important because words can elevate, which I'm hoping that I'm teaching the young people to do, or it can incite, which can lead to harm and possible can lead to tragedies.
okay. Now I'm going to go on a slight tangent, but if I'm a principal or an organizational leader, what can I expect if I bring Sammy in to speak to my people?
Well, what you can expect is that within the context of how Holocaust and genocide started, I will tell you my story, but I will not present it in a way that you will feel my pain. That's not my goal. It's a fact. It happened. And I just posted on my Facebook page something that Let me see if I can read it to you. I posted about 8 years ago, but let me see if I can read it to you with your permission.
Sure.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, this is what I wrote. Remember, the past is gone, cannot be changed. The future is not here. Live in the present. And this is the quote that I put in. Someday, we'll forget the hurt, the reason we cried, and who caused us pain. We will finally realize that the secret of being free is not revenge, but letting things unfold in their own way and own time. After all, what matters is not the first, but the last chapter of our life, which shows how well we ran the race. So smile, laugh, forgive, believe, and love all over again. I believe that is a quote that can summarize my mission when I give a presentation.
I love it. And I'm going to quote an amazing human being I met recently, and I consider a friend. He said to me, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to be." And that was your quote, in fact, my friend. Tell me what that means to you for the average kid in public school today.
And I'm going to tell you what I tell them. I use an example. But many people are defined by their profession. They are defined by their looks, okay, by their spouses, by their accomplishments, uh, by their homes, okay. There are many, many ways that people define themselves. Uh, Whatever happened to me does not define who I am. And I'm using an example. I had a girlfriend, and when I introduced her to some of my friends, she extended the hand and she used to say, "Hi, my name is Anita. I'm bipolar." Who cares? Nobody asked you. But that was her identity.
Yep.
Okay. And what I'm saying is, I identify myself by my choices that I make. So whatever happened, okay, I deal with it, put it aside, it's over, and then I decide to make new choices. So even if I'm hurt, okay, learn the lessons from it and move forward.
I think that's what I love in that. If I could only take one word away, is the choose. I love the fact that the reminder that we choose what we become with what we have.
Correct. And the other thing that I also like to say is that choose wisely. And for people to understand, uh, all of us have made mistakes. I call my mistakes experiences. So I am a man with a lot of experience. But what I'm saying is, whatever decision I made, good or bad, whichever way it turned out, that decision was made based on the information and data that I had at that particular time.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I evolved. In the meantime, I've learned from my past experiences. So what I did in the past does not apply today, because today, quite possibly, I would act sooner. I would act differently. Who knows what I would do today? I don't know. I'm not in that situation. But today, I would not act the same way because my information today is different.
I love that. And I can't help but think with a lot of people, they're trying to stay the way they were, even though the information's changed. They're not making new choices.
Correct.
All right. Well, for the record, I just want to thank you for the questions I'm about to ask you. I know it's going to bring up some painful moments,
No,
um,
no, it
but
will not. It will not bring up painful because I accepted the past. It is gone. Nothing I can do about it. And if I want to educate, I have to be open and honest.
I love
Otherwise,
that.
I'm not fulfilling my mission the way I envision it.
Excellent. And before we wrap up today, I'm going to ask my listeners, we're going to talk about, actually, let's do that now, and then we'll get into some of the past. Let's talk about your specific mission. And I want my listeners to think about how they can help Sami on this journey. So let's talk about your mission. As I understand it, you want to reach as many youth of today as possible. Am I close?
Okay. Uh, all the changes in the world have been accomplished by the young people. Okay, if you really look into history. My mission is an acronym of a Hebrew word, E.M.E.T, which means truth. So, first of all, is to educate the next generation. I do not know about Canada, but in the United States, unequivocally, I can tell you that there is no education in school, there is indoctrination. Okay. Uh, to motivate them to be the best that they can be, to empower them to become upstanders, and to teach them about tolerance. Tolerance does not mean to accept somebody's misbehavior. What it means is to accept other people's opinion, other people's culture. When I am giving my opinion, I do not ask anybody to agree with me because I grew up in a different country, a different regime, different culture. My opinions may be different than yours. All I'm asking you is to respect that I have a different opinion. And uh, if you want to discuss it, let's do it in a civil way, okay? Without criticizing the other person, without criticizing the other person has a different opinion. And if we are going to have a dialogue, okay, whoever has the better, uh, how shall I say, information, okay, hopefully can persuade the other person to look at it and check it out and see if it's valid for that person also. One of the biggest problems that we have here in the United States is that people have forgotten how to disagree in a civil way. And I will talk more about it, okay? The fact how I became a free man.
Excellent. Well, I think for our listeners today, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a fast chronological, and then going forward, we'll go back and do some deep dives. I want to paint a big, broad picture of the life of Sami, and definitely encourage people to check out your website. A link will be below, and I want them to check out your book. Let's go back. So we'll talk about, I think on another one we'll talk about the rise of the war and the things that came with it, but let's focus right now on Sami. So you were born in 1939.
December 21. The war already started. It was about 3.5, a little bit longer, you know, okay, going on.
So
I
let's
was,
start with
okay, yeah.
your childhood there and your
Yes.
infancy.
So what happened is I was born in a city called Chernobyl. It was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in an area called Bukovina. Bukovina was given to Romania. Okay, so what happened is uh, in June 22nd, 1941, The Germans attacked former Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa. Behind them were the special killing groups called Einsatzgruppen. And behind them, there were the Romanian troops. And they occupied Transnistria, an area of Ukraine. And that's why we were deported by the Romanians and not by the Germans. Uh, what happened is after the war, uh, my mother and I were born outside of Romania proper, but my father was born in Romania proper. And in 1946, the Romanian government allowed a small group of Jews from the former Soviet Union to return. My father, being an anti-communist, chose the lesser of two evils, decided to go back to Romania, and for whatever reason, settled in a very small town called Reghin, Reghin, in Transylvania. And that's where I grew up until 1961, when the whole family went to Israel. In 1968, when I came to the United States by myself. So we were deported, like I said, in 1941. The camp was liberated, being part of the former Soviet Union, today's Ukraine, was liberated in 1944. So if you will ask any survivor, how come you're alive today? Everybody will use only one word, and that is luck. My luck was that I was never separated from my parents. All three of us survived, which means I'm not only a Holocaust survivor, I'm also a child of Holocaust survivors. I was subjected to medical experiments. And after they finished with the medical experiments, came a stage that I was dying of starvation. And there are physical signs: big head, swollen stomach, swollen feet. Not far away from the camp, there was a farm owned by Germans. And the woman brought food to the guards in the SS. I believe most of the guards were Romanians, I'm assuming, and possibly Ukrainians, but definitely, the SS. So she had access to the camp. And one day, when she saw the physical signs that I'm dying of starvation, at the risk of her entire family, she decided to give me milk. Possibly something else, but that's all my father told me. I don't know, and I don't want to embellish things. Interestingly enough, came a stage that I got some color on my cheek. And in Yiddish is a language used in the past and still today, a combination of German and Hebrew. And she used to give me a knip. A knip is like this, okay? And she used to give me the knip, and she used to say, "Those are my rosy cheeks." I do not know the name of the woman that saved my life at the risk of her entire family. If she
Yeah.
would have been caught, her entire family would have been murdered. So obviously, I was not able to honor her. But as you know, and hopefully the listeners know, in Israel, there is the Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum. And next to it, there is a garden honoring 27,000 non-Jewish people that saved Jews. And I saw a marker honoring the unknown righteous among the nations. And that made me very happy, because indirectly, the woman that saved my life has been honored.
Well, and I love thinking about her as the first upstander in your life.
Yes,
You know, she's
without a doubt. Not
had
only an upstander, she is in my life uh, one of the righteous among the nations. Without knowing her name, I was not able to bestow that honor to her.
well, and I love that her legacy lives on in you, and I think that's contributed to who you are today. We will talk more about the Holocaust and definitely your childhood. Now, what was it like returning to Romania? How were you and your fellow Jews perceived? Was that um, an open arms sort of invitation and welcome, or was it less than open arms?
Honestly, I don't know. Officially, everybody was equal, but you cannot legislate how somebody feels.
Yeah.
So basically, according to the Constitution, everybody's equal. It was a communist country, socialist communist country, so they believe in equality. Uh, I was not even 4 years old when we returned, so obviously I went to school there and everything else. I was always proud of being who I am. And interestingly enough, my name is spelled with two N's, is the German spelling. Supposedly, I do not have the features that a lot of people assume that a Jew is supposed to look like. So people used to come to me and tell me all kinds of stupid things about Jews, about jokes and all of this. And I looked at that person, or if it was a group, and I said, "Do you know who you're talking to?" I am Jewish. I was not afraid. He said, "Oh, we did not mean you. We meant them." What
Wow.
is the difference? The
Who's them?
difference is what I teach the young people is that we hate people because we don't know them. We don't know them because we hate them. So by engaging with somebody, learning from somebody else's culture, you will find out that you have more in common than differences. And by being so proud of being Jewish, one funny thing happened. Can I ask you what it was?
Yes, please. What was the funny thing?
What do you think?
I'm gonna guess that you got to know people and there was less hate.
Yes, but more importantly, they respected me. So by respecting yourself, okay, you will gain respect from other people and you will treat other people with respect.
And I'm just gonna say I'm a father of two young boys. One in his 10, one's 10, one's 14. These are lessons that kids that age should be learning. If you don't respect yourself, nobody else will, and if you don't respect others, they're not going to respect you.
And interestingly enough, in my presentations, obviously you cannot tell everything, okay, because the time is limited. But I also say, remember, everything starts with three letters. Y-O-U. Whatever you expect from other people, first of all, do it to yourself. You want to be loved? Learn to love yourself. You want to be respected? Learn to respect yourself. Uh, you want acceptance? Learn to accept yourself. So everything starts with you. Okay, you want to be happy? Don't ask it outside. Learn to be happy from inside, and the love will come.
And I think it's safe to say if you don't have, you can't give. So if you don't love yourself, how can you love someone else? And I'm just going to point out the moment I met Sammy, the first word that came to my mind, my first impression, literally is love. Sammy is, to me, he's the picture of love because he clearly has figured out how to love himself. He's found that. But he's also so amazingly welcome and generous. So I'm just pointing that out for others because coming from your past, you chose to be love. You chose love, and that's powerful.
Thank you.
All right, now I'm a little hazy, and we're gonna get there. Um, was your sister born in Romania or in Israel?
No, my sister was born on the way from the former Soviet Union to Romania. She was born in 1946
Okay.
in a city where most of the people heard of that famous person, in Siget. and that was Elie Wiesel. But he just passed through it. We did not live there.
Okay. So your family, you're reestablishing ties and life in Romania. Um, what was the deciding point? And I want to, again, I recognize you were a child at the time, but what was the deciding point to move to the new state of Israel?
Uh, my parents instilled in me, okay, the love for my culture, my religion, and also, okay, with the formation of the state of Israel. I can tell you a true story. It's a funny story, but it's a true story. In 1947, before the establishment of the state of Israel, a small group of pioneers came to our small town. I was at that time about 6.5 years old, and one of them came to me and he said, "Do you want to go to Palestine?" I said, "No." "Are you a Zionist?" I said, "No." He said, "I will circumcise you." Suddenly, I became a Zionist and I wanted to go to Israel. It's a funny story, but it's a true story. My father enrolled me in a school called B'nai Akiva, which it still exists today. It's religious, but it's also a Zionist organization. So I grew up that way. And since I'm using the word Zionism, let me explain to your audience what I mean by that. To me, in very simple terms, to be a Zionist means that Jews have the right to have their own country. Israel is the only Jewish country in the world, and at the same time, to decide our own future. We were always dependent on other countries and other regimes to decide for us to be benevolent. With Israel, do I like everything what they do? No, but it's my country. It's our decision to decide for ourselves. Without, like in my personal life, I don't want anybody else to define who I am. Okay. Okay. I don't want anybody else to tell us how to live.
Well, and I'm just going to say that when I hear you defining Zionist, I feel like either I am one or I should aspire to be one, because I firmly believe every people should have the right to determine their own destiny. And I think that's, if you think about the history, the Jewish people were always at the behest of someone. There's the benevolence or lack thereof of the countries they were in. So I firmly believe that everybody should be given that right to make their own laws, make their own, because again, one of the things that I find fascinating about the Jewish people, it's a religion, it's a culture, it's deeper than just an
It's our
ethnic group.
identity. It's our
Yeah.
identity.
And so I would like to go on record as saying I firmly believe in the Zionist principles. Again, sometimes
Then
how they're
okay.
applied.
Then you are a Zionist. If you believe that the Jews have the right, are entitled to have their own country, determine their own future, whether you know it or not, you are a Zionist. But people do not think in those terms. It's what they see, what they read, they hear from the slogans and everything else. And unfortunately, the media is complicit in whatever we are going through today in this world.
Now, how old would you have been when your family arrived in Israel?
When we arrived to Israel, I was almost 21 years old.
Okay, so you would have had I'm going to call you a young adult because I think at
Yes.
21 we all think we know everything, and then the world shows us how little we do know. Um, Tell me about the excitement or the feelings leading up to going to Israel, and then what was it like to actually arrive there?
Well, uh, interestingly enough, most of the people will say they kissed the ground. Okay, I believe I did. Okay, I'm back in my own country, but it's a very simple thing. Is the most memorable for me of coming to Israel. Seeing a Jewish policeman. We were always, like you said, at the behest of other regimes, of other people. It was the first time by seeing a Jewish policeman, I said, wow. So then what I decided, being very patriotic and everything else, being a newcomer, they were not going to uh, get me into the military, but I volunteered and I served in the Israeli Air Force from 1962 to 1965. And it was a very proud moment.
It's I'm trying to comprehend as a somebody looking back in history, but just thinking about, you know, this is not just the birth of a new nation. I mean, this is a restoration, a return home to the Holy Land, return home to ancestral origins, and literally carving a new path forward in really uncertain times.
Let me tell you, okay, we came to a city, but at one time it was the fourth largest city in Israel. Right now, another city that we used to make fun of because they were so small, okay, they overtook Holon. So when we came to Holon, on the main street, it was the last building. As far as the eyes could see was only sand, and they built it up. Okay, until Israel existed, Israel or Palestine, the way most of the people refer to before the establishment of the state of Israel, it was a marsh. There was nothing there. Okay, people forget about history. They look what it is today, and they can claim all kinds of things, but who actually built it? Okay, it's totally different. People are forgetting that Israel was attacked by 6 countries. Israel did not even have an army per se at that time. The IDF did not exist. There were divisions in as far as how to fight the British. Were the divisions okay also in Israel? So you cannot talk about any country unless you know the history. You can talk, for instance, about Bangladesh. You can talk about any country that you want that has been established. But everybody wanted to have their own identity, their own things. And for us, which a lot of people don't want to admit it, don't want to recognize it, it's the return to our homeland. It's not the establishment of a new country, it's the return to our homeland. And also, very few people know Jews lived in Palestine for centuries. If they wanted to travel somewhere, do you know what was written in their passport?
I'm gonna guess
Palestinian.
Palestinian, yeah.
So just like we have, the Arabs pretending or claiming, that we occupied the land, we are Palestinians. The Jews are Palestinians until 1948. There are so many misinformation, and I will readily admit Israel is not very good in PR. Israel have not learned the lesson. they are reacting instead of being proactive. And, you know, uh, the situation where we are in today, without going right now into politics, at some point, if you want to talk more about it, but both sides have made mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it did not happen suddenly. We are not here today all of a sudden. And the same thing that I am trying to bring back the history of the Holocaust, how it happened. If we want to find a solution, we have to learn the history of the particular country, of the particular people, and everything else. You cannot just ignore the past and just look at the present and move forward. You cannot do that.
And I think that's a North American mistake that we repeat over and over and over is we try to apply North American logic to other parts of the world without understanding the people. And
Correct.
that's if you look at some of the the big events, a lot of it happened because we didn't stop and think, what do these people need, what do they want? It was just, instead, here's our will. We want you to do this, do it or else. And usually or else happens. So we'll definitely have an entire episode on that. So you were in the Air Force. What was that like for you? What was your primary role? And
Well, I was an electrician, and the most advanced plane that Israel had at that time from France, Mirage 3C. The first group of the people that started the plane went to France. I was on the first class that started the plane in Israel. So for a while, for about a year, I uh, repaired and tested cockpit instruments. I was supposed to be in charge of 32 people in the lab, but I wanted to be with my friends, and through trials and tribulations, okay, that's a long story. Okay, they finally agreed to me. They threatened me with the court martial, but they agreed. And they said, okay, but we'll take away all your stripes. Fine, but at least I was with my friends, and it was always a sense of pride, something that I am contributing to the welfare of my country.
I love that. Now, what was the next step? So Sammy is in the Air Force with the IDF, and then you leave the service, which,
Okay.
by the way, I happen to think that it's really amazing that the entire population of Israel to this day, everybody serves their country. I
Until the
can't
age of 50, until the age of 50,
I can't
mandatory.
I can't help but think that we would have more community and things if we had something like that. That's another conversation. What caused you to leave the military, and what was sort of your transition into civilian life like?
Yeah. Well, I had to put, they started a new company that I probably would have been the CEO of that company by today. But who did they select? The same people that served with. And with some of them, I did not like.
Fair
And I said
enough.
I had enough of them, and I decided not to become part of the nucleus of that particular company, which today is a huge company. And what happened is, while I was in the military, uh, I had a desire to come to the United States. From my family side, uh, only from my father's side. From my mother's side, I know very little. But from my father's side, from 42 people, only two survived. My uncle was not a survivor. He was always he was never in a camp, but he was a refugee And that's why I say we have to remember the past, do not make comparisons to the past. In those days, during the Nazi regime, there were only 3 countries that officially accepted Jewish refugees: China, Dominican Republic, and Philippines. And my uncle was a refugee in Shanghai. To go to Shanghai, you did not need a visa. It was extremely expensive, the long trip. How my uncle got the money, I have no idea. People had to be very creative to do things to escape the Nazi regime. But I finished the military. Before I finished the military, I wanted to go to the United States, but my aunt developed breast cancer in 62. That was a death sentence. So I finished with the military. I forgot about traveling. I started my career as an accountant and everything else. My mother, Jewish mother, I'm sure that you heard Jewish jokes about the Jewish mother. So she came to me and she said, Sammy, you're 29 years old. Okay, why don't you travel? And I said, Mother, okay, lost that interest. So she enlisted my father in on every occasion. They kept bugging me. And I am a firm believer in compromise, but it has to be a win-win. It cannot be win-lose. And I knew that at that particular time, to apply as a legal immigrant, okay, it was based on a quota and based on the country of origin. At that time, okay, in my passport, it said that I was born in the former Soviet Union, and I knew, okay, that it will take 5 years for the visa to be approved. Okay, so I said, who knows what happens in 5 years? My parents will get off my back, and I can live long and happy.
Yeah.
Okay, don't ask me why and how within a very short period of time. I would probably say 2 months. The United States changed the immigration law, and it was based on profession and not by the country of origin.
Oh.
Why they needed accountants, I have no idea. But I got my visa. So take it or leave it. So without money, without the language, United States, here is Sammy.
Wow. And did you fly in at that time, or how would you have
Yes,
arrived?
that was probably one of the greatest experiences I've ever had in my life. My uncle lived in Santa Barbara. So I took a flight from Tel Aviv to LA. They don't have it today. But in those days, as long as you chose a destination anywhere in the world, but in a straight line, you could fly for as long as you want. I have been for about 2.5 months in different places. Okay. One of the so I've been in Italy, I've been in France, I've been in Amsterdam. Okay, different places. It was absolutely unreal. At that time, I was also young, so it was the hippie time, if you remember, to sleep at the airport and to eat bread in grapes was nothing unusual. But I loved it, as I could see the world for free. Actually, for free. I mean, just for the fare of the flight, Tel
Yeah.
Aviv, Los Angeles. But it's unreal.
It's funny. I do remember when I was younger, there was a special round the world flight, and it was as long as it was one way, you either went east or you went west, and you were always going that direction. It was like a fixed price, and you could as many flights as you wanted.
That's exactly what I experienced.
Love it.
It
So
was
you arrived
unreal.
in Los Angeles, young accountant, didn't speak.
In Los Angeles, I didn't stay. I just took another flight. to Santa Barbara to be with my uncle.
Okay.
So at that time, I did not visit Los Angeles.
So, how did that transition feel to you? Coming to Santa Barbara, new culture, new language, new people.
I had no idea what I am, what I'm doing here, what I'm going to do. Okay, I had no money. I just came to see my uncle. So I basically spent time with him. And Santa Barbara is still one of my favorite places because it has the mountains and it has the ocean. And it's also very clean, beautiful. I loved it.
So I'm gonna take a sidebar here with my audience. I would bet I have some connections in and around California that could help Sammy come and speak in Santa Barbara. I think that would be a nice homecoming of sorts for Sammy. So I'm just going to
Yes.
throw it there for the network. Um, how did you integrate, and how did you? What was the next step in your amazing journey once you're in Santa Barbara with your uncle?
Well, this is very interesting. Uh, my father had a first cousin. So obviously, okay, I was first cousin, once removed with him. And he had a son, second cousins. And the second cousin that promised me that he was very wealthy, that he will help me with the job, with everything to introduce me to the American culture. But before I talk about that, let me tell you about his father, my first cousin once removed. He was married second time, and as we came to the house, his wife asked me what I like, and I like salad. But keep in mind that I was used to the Israeli salad, okay, with this chopped in very, very small pieces, and she gave me the grass, the lettuce, which I considered grass. And I started chewing, and I'm thinking in my head, what is this? I'm like a cow chewing grass. And I said, I'm very sorry, but I don't like it. I wasn't used to. I did not know that you have to put dressing in it or whatever.
Yeah.
To make a long story short, she made a promise and she kept it. She said, I will never cook for you again.
Thank you. I mean,
You refused my food. Okay. So with my second cousin, obviously the audience will be able to relate to it. Promises made, not kept. My first introduction to American culture, he invited me, okay, for lunch on a Sunday. Before I could open my mouth, he said, shh, quiet, football time. And apparently he was a fanatic. And for 6 hours, watching two games, okay, I stood there like an idiot, looking at the screen, not knowing what's happening, okay, and not being able to talk. And that was my introduction to the American culture.
welcome to America, right? I mean,
Welcome
he
to America.
introduced you to the culture, and football on Sunday is definitely part of that. So perhaps not
But
as you.
if you've never seen one, you don't understand why those two, because the big guys, they hit each other.
Yeah, who for? What's the point of this game? I think there's a
Right.
lot to. So there's how did you learn the language, and how did you start to fit into the culture then?
Okay. Well, I was fluent at that time, 8 languages, and learning English in 9 languages. But I went to a night school, and because I spoke 8 languages, I had an affinity to learn a new language. So the other students told the teachers they don't want me in the class because I'm too far advanced from them.
You made them all feel slow.
Right.
Um,
So I learned English, surprisingly enough, from commercials. Repetitive, you can associate, they have pictures, proper pronunciation. Okay, so the commercials were my teachers. The other thing is, I was not afraid to talk, even with my broken English, to people. And when I got my job, people invited me for lunch. And one of them that I became friends introduced me to the others. And somebody asked me, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name is Sami Steigmann." "What's yours?" He said, "Charlie Brown." So everybody was laughing. I never heard of Charlie Brown as a character. So I said, "Hi, Charlie." But the funny part is, people, when you come to a new country, they will make fun of you. There is no question about it. But it's not a mean fun. As soon as they realized that I don't know who Charlie Brown was, they explained to me and they told me. Okay, so I learned from my particular uh, perspective. Okay, do not be afraid. Even if you don't know the culture, do not be afraid, even if you don't know the language. People, yes, will make fun. They made fun for me in Israel when I came without the language, but they are very kind, they're very nice, and they will correct you and they will teach you.
I love that. And I think that's, a lot of people, they misinterpret humor and they feel it's cruel or unkind. um but I've done some traveling, and when you meet up with people, we all start with the stereotypes of our own countries, and we kind of make fun of those, and then we learn to make fun of the ones of the other countries, and then that becomes part of the bond. Is we all realize that our cultures all have weird things and all have good things. So
Correct.
now we're gonna go over, and I think we'll cover probably a little bit more, and then we'll pause, and Sammy will be back. I think we're gonna have a very multi-part series on this. Um, what's the next big chapter in your life? So once you've kind of settled in, you've got a life building in Santa Barbara. What's the next
No,
major
in Santa
adventure?
Barbara, I did not have a life. I was there
Oh,
only for just for a week. I came to
okay.
Milwaukee. I came to Milwaukee.
Okay,
And
there
my
we go.
second cousin was in Racine. Okay. But I lived in Milwaukee. So the next chapter is, I got my job, everything else, made some friends. Eventually, I met my ex, got married, had my son, got divorced, returned to Israel for 5 years. In 1988, I came back. I live today in New York. That was not my final destination. But I've been away for 5 years and I did not know where I want to live. I knew that I did not want to go back to Milwaukee, and I did not want at that particular time to disrupt my son's, life. And interestingly enough, in New York, I came at the height of the inflation, 1988. Again, unprepared financially, and I had to rent an apartment. And you can imagine in those days, that was a lot of money. I had to pay $400 to live in a basement. Okay, no windows. And it was approaching the winter and no hot water. So eventually, what happened is I purchased, obviously not in cash, but I purchased an apartment in Sheepshead Bay in Brooklyn. And I lived there until 1996, but because of unfortunate circumstances, My mistakes, obviously, I don't blame anybody. I became homeless, and today I live under the poverty line. In the United States, one third of Jewish Holocaust survivors live under the poverty line. And in New York, there are 30,000 Holocaust survivors, 12,000 live under the poverty line. And I am one of them. As a matter of fact, if you will go to CNN, there is a story about me living with other people under the poverty line.
I think that's an amazing statistic, and the fact that we know it means that we can and we should be doing something about it. I'm going to come back
We
to the
should do. We should be doing something for the Holocaust survivors. We should be doing something for the veterans. There's so many people for the homeless people. There is so many things. There is money.
yeah,
Money is wasted. I
yeah.
used to work for a company, Suede, and this particular country, in my opinion, you may disagree with me, uh, is run by waste. Okay, you don't pay a lot for a car. You pay for the repairs. That's how they make the money, by selling, okay, the byproducts. And a group of people came from Germany to see how we live. And that particular company was the largest one in the United States at that time. From about 400 Suede companies, at that time there was only 40. And when they came, the Germans said one thing: if we would do business like you do, we would go bankrupt.
It's sad but true. I mean, that's a
Okay, it's I cannot talk about Canada. I cannot talk about other countries. I don't want to make assumptions. I do not like to generalize. But in the United States, almost everything else, think about it, is run, okay, by waste.
yeah.
Okay, you have to go to the car, you have to buy the tire, you have to buy carburetor, you have gas, whatever. But it's not the basic product, okay, that is expensive, which is expensive anyway. But I'm saying that's not the final amount. Say I'm buying a car, it's costing me so much money, I don't have to pay anymore. Oh, now comes the things. So you buy a house, uh, you can rent a house, you can buy a house, an apartment. Well, here in Manhattan, you have only apartments. So you buy an apartment, guess what? You pay it, it's paid. But yet, you have to pay every month, you have to pay for clinic, you have to pay for different things, everything else. It's not just one amount paid, it's over. I don't know if it's the best example that I'm giving you, but I think people can understand what I'm talking about.
Well, I think honestly, if you look at cell phones, that's kind of an indicator of society. It's always got to have the latest and greatest. And, you know, um, I'm just going to share, Sammy. My wife and I, we love watching this renovation show in Europe, and it's absolutely fascinating. They renovate chalets in France, and it is amazing how these people take every little piece, like when they're done there's very little garbage. They either save the parts or they put things over, they take it and sell it. And then when you watch the renovation shows in the US, they'll fill like 3 truckloads of garbage because why fix something when we can strip it clean and start over.
And then you know what I say? Somebody's garbage is somebody's luxury.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I see kids at school when I pick up my boys, they've got the latest and greatest iPhone. And it's like, but 6 weeks ago you were talking about your last iPhone. We just seem to dispose of things that are, still perfectly good. but because it's not perfect, there's a dent or a chip or it's 3 months old. I think that's I hate to say it, but Canadian culture, we really really want to be like the US. So we tend to copy your bad habits and we get them worse, and we tend to copy your good habits, but we don't quite get there. So I think there's a ridiculous amount of waste. I mean, it's just, you know, people spending money that they shouldn't or don't need to just to keep up with the neighbors. It's an interesting place. Now, I don't want to dwell on life and things that brought you to being homeless. I'd really like to talk about um, how you turned that around, because to me that's a major victory in itself, is going from homeless. Um, and just to give you context, in Canada right now, pretty much every major city, with COVID, we shut down mental health facilities, we shut down drug treatment facilities. Um, in Edmonton, where I live, we've got homeless tents and villages popping up everywhere. How did you make that transition, and what was that like for you, going from homeless to, I know you're below the poverty line, but now you have a home.
Uh, for some reason, I cannot get into my website. I don't know what happened. Let me try again. Uh, Give me 1 minute, please.
Sure.
Okay, 1 second. Uh, where do I have it? I may have to take that one that I wrote. Let me see. I don't see it right now. Give me just 1 second, okay? Here is something that I wrote for myself. Okay, and it's on my Facebook, but for some strange reason, I cannot find it right now. And can I read the whole thing? It will
Ab-
take probably about 3 minutes, 3 minutes or something.
yes, please.
As a motivational speaker, using examples based on my personal experiences, I try to use only positive words. And remember Geico, garbage in, garbage out. The mind is like a computer, and nobody can take away what you put in. How did I become a free man? I journeyed from trauma to triumph, and triumphed because of my mindset, my way of being, and the special way of viewing myself. Some may call it being a hero. I am a success because the worst brought out the best in me. I achieved my wisdom and confidence by accumulating personal and social habits. I escaped the prison of my own mind. I accepted the past. I let go of the past. I took responsibility for my actions and mistakes. I decided to forgive myself. I decided to be kind to myself. I stopped blaming others or circumstances for my predicaments. I have a choice to react to any given situation in a positive manner. I am in control. I learned that suffering is universal, but victimhood is optional. I do not ask why me. Rather, what now? Summary: my whole life was and is an unfinished journey made of choices. I am not what happens to me, what happened to me. I am what I choose to be. And I framed it. Okay. And this is, in a nutshell, this is my story. And let me tell you how, if we have the time, how I learned not to blame others or circumstances.
We will make time for that because I think
Okay.
um, when you said victimhood, I think that is a choice, and I don't want people to misinterpret that. You know, if you're a victim of something, that's not a choice, but choosing to be remain the victim and keep reliving it is a choice, and I think it's not an empowering one. So
Right.
I want your
And
your
nobody can make you a victim.
yeah.
The only one that can do it is you yourself.
And I'm going to go back just a second because I want you to talk about that some more. Um, when we talk about this, I just want to make it clear that you were experimented on by the Nazis. You were subject to medical experimentation, and that caused you a lifetime of pain. Yet you've chosen not to be a victim to that. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, as a matter of fact, with old age, I'm having difficulty walking, climbing stairs, going on an incline. And guess what? I accepted it. That's one of the benefits of growing old. The alternative is worse. And I just push myself and I move forward. It's part of my life. You adjust to it and you do what you have to do to be able to do what you really want to do. And what I really want to do, in all honesty, I have seen things, I've done things. All I want to do right now is to, my main goal in life, my mission, my life's mission is to educate the next generation. And when I'm talking next generation, you can be young, you can be adults, anybody, any ethnic group of people, you know. So I start, when I give presentations, I start with fourth graders. And I do something else, how I teach the young people to become leaders. I don't know if you will agree with it or not. And I'm talking about your audience. But somebody said that by doing what I'm doing, I'm a mentor. I'm not sure about that. But what I do when I give a presentation is I don't talk. I answer questions. A student will moderate. I want everybody to see them as somebody on a TV show, the host inviting a guest. And I tell them, I am that person's guest. I do not tell them what to say, what to present, what questions. They do it the way they know. I let them be who they are.
Well, very much like you and I right in a second. You
Yes.
gave me
And
full carte blanche to just be curious. So
a seventh grader moderated in front of 400 students, 11th grader and in front of 1,200 students. You should see the pride and the joy from their part and from my part to see their confidence and their willingness to accept the challenge and the willingness to do it. It's amazing. So
I
I
love
don't
that.
think of myself. I don't think of myself as a mentor, but maybe I should apply it. I have no idea.
Well, if you'll accept this from me, Sammy, I believe that a mentor is anyone who helps anyone else try to be better or to be better. You are literally the textbook definition of a mentor,
Thank
and
you.
whether it's to many or to one, I firmly believe I am one of my favorite roles. I am first and foremost a father. Secondly, I'm a husband. Then I have, I'm a brother, son, that sort of thing. But of my professional roles, mentor is my favorite. And what I love about the word mentor is it's one that's rarely self claimed, it's usually one that's thrust upon us. And then afterwards, once we accept it, we go, oh, that makes sense. So I'm here to give you that gift, Sammy, that you are a mentor to many. Um, and not just for reasons of the Holocaust survivor, but also for the fact that you're a ray of light in a sometimes dark world, and it's just you radiate love, which I believe again only comes when you've learned to truly love and forgive yourself. So I think you're a mentor on many levels, if I may give you that title.
Thank you.
Now, let's talk about the forgiveness and moving forward, because one of the things I've heard from you, and I'm privileged. I've had many conversations with Sammy, and I look forward to many more. Every incident in your life, you own your part in it, and I think that's just that piece alone is incredibly empowering because you talk about being homeless, you talk about divorce, you know, a lot of people will get into that victimhood. Um, I know people where their spouses have died and they wear the badge of widow or widower and they blame their spouse for leaving them. It's really hard to move on when you don't, first of all, acknowledge if you had some fault in it, but then forgive the people involved. So tell me about your amazing
Okay.
mindset
Okay.
because
Yes. So to get into more details about, uh, the one that I framed, okay, how I became a free man. I became homeless because I trusted some friends with my life. And okay, I got involved with the wrong people. I was in a situation that I was not very sharp to be able to analyze whether it's true, not true, or something. I just believed. That's why blind faith, in my opinion, is questionable. Works for some people, not for everybody. And what happened is, I have many reasons to be angry, to be bitter, to be revengeful. But I did something else, and I'm going to read again so for people to understand. Okay? I have escaped the prison of my own mind. I accepted the past. It happened. Nothing I can do about it. I let go of the past. It's over. Time to move forward. I took responsibility for my mistakes, which means, okay, that I have decided to forgive myself for making that mistake, for trusting them blindly. I decided to be kind to myself, and I decided to stop blaming others or circumstances. So what happened is I said, I made two mistakes. I gave him cash, and I did not put anything in writing. Prove it. So what do I mean? I have accepted my responsibility. Okay. And I said, you know something? They are not guilty. They took advantage of my stupidity. And that's when I had to forgive myself, to be kind to myself. So by accepting responsibility, guess what? I don't have the need to blame them. I don't have the need to be angry. If I would meet them on the street and one of them would come to me and would say, hi, Sammy, how are you? I would talk to them. They are complete strangers, but I've learned my lesson. I will never be friends with them again. And by overcoming obstacles in circumstances, you become a stronger person, a better person, a kinder person that learns how to communicate and how to live with other people. So for me, uh, you may be surprised, being homeless is one of the greatest achievements of my life. You'll
We'll
be
talk about that
surprised.
more.
How is it possible? Because if I would have not been homeless, I probably would have not volunteered. I probably would have not the experiences that I had by volunteering. At the same time, I would have not started to talk, okay, about my experiences in the Holocaust. I would have not achieved what I have achieved so far. And the most important thing, I found my mission in life. Many people are searching their entire life. Okay, what will their legacy be?
Yeah.
And I have found my mission in life. And I would have probably never found because I don't have hobbies. So I probably would have never be at the point where I am. And I tell especially young people, do not regret anything because everything that you went through is a step forward to be the person that you are today.
I love that. And I'm going to take that as a logical stopping point because I think you and I, and my gut's telling me our next conversation, I'd like to spend a lot of time talking about your volunteerism because that's how you and I, in all intents and purposes met. Um, and I think that's the message of Sammy is of hope and of faith and life. We're gonna spend a lot of time together on that. But I just want to say thank you for on behalf of my listeners for sharing your mission and your journey. And I love being part of it. I'm lucky I've met you. My life is better for having met you. I want to thank you for hanging out with me today and sharing your story a little bit.
It is my honor and my pleasure. Okay, and you are something very special in my life that has made and will make a difference. Okay, and help me accomplish my mission.
Excellent. So I think next time we'll talk more
And
mission.
both of us will leave a legacy for our future, for the future.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the wonderful Esther Deutsch. She is an amazing human being, and she's Sammy's unofficially adopted granddaughter, and I think she's adopted Sammy as her grandfather. Without Esther bringing us together, without her support, this would not be happening. So just anybody listening, if you want to meet Esther, she's an amazing human being. She's an amazing connector. I'll be putting a link to her book. She has a book called Musings of a Networking Maven. So thank you, Esther. And Sammy, I look forward to going deeper on some of these things, and I'll come back with more curiosity for our next segment.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
I would love Esther to be part on future conversations. I want people to know Esther too.
I got chills there. That is going to happen. All right. And for anybody who's listening, just as a heads up, Sammy and I are working on a biography together. It's about hope, not about the pain. And I think we'll be sharing this journey together with people. Um, I firmly believe that we need to learn the lessons from history. We need to figure out ways to avoid repeating them because, I'm sure we've got new ways to figure things out. We don't need to keep going back and making the same mistakes. So, thank you, Sammy, and definitely thank you, Esther.
Thank you. And thank you, Jeff.